So you're given some data. What next? We're going to look at two common approaches to starting to analyze data, which are called exploratory data analysis and the process of working with the data files, transforming variables, cleaning things up, that's commonly called data wrangling. All right, so given some data, let's start by thinking of what would be involved with exploratory data analysis. This is really the creative, open-ended part of looking at the data. This is where you may be transforming, visualizing, or summarizing the data, really with the goal of trying to understand where did the data come from. So provenance is the origin of the data, the methodology by which it were produced. Identifying any type of issues you might find in the data. And this step can really start to inform the next things you choose to do in the process. This is designed to be very open-ended, and that's in contrast to what we call confirmatory analysis, where you come in with questions that are fixed in advance, and that will allow for a more rigorous statistical analysis. We're going to be looking at both in this course, but starting with EDA, we don't come in with any predefined questions about the data. We're just curious and looking to see what we might find. Some of the key properties that are helpful in this process are to look through what the structure of the data is, and that will actually determine even how we read it in to Python. We'll look at the granularity, so that will be what does each record represent? Are these representing individual people? Are these representing houses? Are these representing an entire population? At what level do we have this data? The scope is, does the data actually cover the population of interest that we're interested in analyzing? Sometimes we have data that's outside the population of interest. Sometimes we don't have enough information about the whole population we're interested in. And so that's important in determining the scope. If time is an influence in the data, then it's important to look at how is time related to the data values? What are the measurements used for time? Is this on a monthly basis, a yearly basis? And even if you have date fields in your data, does this represent the date that something occurred or the date that, for example, the data was entered? And then finally, we'll be looking at things like, do we have missing values? Do we have anomalies? Do we have anything that makes us think maybe this data is not capturing reality as well as we'd hoped? And that's the data faithfulness. So something that complements this process of EDA is data wrangling. You can really think of that as a fancy term for cleaning. This is really the process of taking your raw data and doing transformations so that it's ready to actually analyze. This is where you'll be digging into issues like missing or corrupted values, having the wrong format of your data, any other types of things you may need to play with. And in reality, this is a big part of data science. So these two go hand in hand, and you really go back and forth throughout the process of wrangling and then exploring and then possibly more wrangling and more exploring. And this recent survey was pointing out that these two tasks are actually a large majority of what data scientists say they currently work on. 70%, nearly 70% are saying basic EDA, and just over 50% of their time is saying data cleaning. So together, the way this works is a process of back and forth between examining the data, examining the fields, and along the way, you'll be visualizing, looking at assumptions about the data, identifying anomalies, and applying transformations and/or corrections. It's important in this process to keep a record of everything you do so that your work is reproducible and you have documentation of why and when you made any changes you might have made. And so we'll be doing this whole process through Jupyter Notebooks. So the next part of this class is going to be looking at the actual tools that we need to use in Jupyter Notebooks, Python, and some of the libraries involved to be able to help us do the EDA and wrangling.